Frank.
Somehow.
Where's
We
Frank?
don't have a speaker.
Oh.
We want my
He
Okay.
was hiding from me.
That's annoying.
He threw me out in front of everybody and then left. So those, does everybody know who's on that committee? I will get those names before this is over. Are we ready?
We are dangerously close.
Now that you're in front of the camera.
Are live. Okay, what about my, yeah, you should. Good to go. Oh, I see what you're saying. Let me just, I hear what you're saying though.
Here we go.
There. Okay. Thank you.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. I'll try not to put you to sleep. Some of you in the room know me because you're related to me. Sorry about that. I don't see Cole in here, so don't hold it against me that I grew up with Cole Coxville. We'll just leave that one alone. My name is Jill. I'm Wyoming born and raised, come from Goshen County. The nearest town is Huntley. And my husband and I are involved in ag. We're Farm Bureau members as well. So just really appreciate the opportunity to be here today. We're going to keep this pretty informal. I'll buzz through the presentation and then you guys can ask me questions at the end or just raise your hand anytime. And you know, if you have questions about your own operation, I'll stick around afterwards and we can go over those at that time. So let's go back in time a little bit. Back in May, the legislature held a special session, and during that session, they designated $325 million to the Business Council with some stipulations to get it out to businesses. Agriculture was available in those programs. However, we knew that ag had not experienced loss, or not very many had at that point. Some had. And a few people applied to those programs. At that time, we started forming groups. We reached out to Farm Bureau, many other stakeholders to look at what are the issues affecting ag because of COVID.
Oh, no. Okay.
Well, we're working on that. So we had several relief programs, and now we are opening the agriculture and endurance program. There, we're getting close now.
Sorry.
We're good. Slide 3. Yep. Okay, there we go. Thanks, Holly. So we had to step back. The funds that are now closed are the interruption fund, the relief fund, and the mitigation fund. And those were the funds set up by the legislature, designated to us to administer at the rate of $325 million. Now we fast forward to the agriculture fund. That program just opened November 2nd. The governor stood this program up and made it available through the Business Council, $90 million, because he knew that now this time of year, a lot of you have experienced your loss. And that program will close November 18th, 2020. Coming up real quick, we're gonna leave it open until 8 at night. The other program that is also open right now is the Endurance Fund, and that's for non-producers. So if you have an ag service business, a trucking business, something like that, the Endurance Fund is for you. There's about $24 million in that fund. That is the leftover funds from these three, and that's open and closed at the same time as the ag fund. Help. There we go. So particular to these both funds, you cannot apply more than one time. So if you have a farm and you truck, You got to pick a lane if you have the same EIN number or the same social security number for both programs or for both businesses. So you can only apply once. You have to have one full-time employee. If you are the owner, you are the full-time employee. So count yourself. The eligible time frame is March 13th to application date. So if you started your business after March 13th, you're not eligible. And again, the total funding is at $90 million. So here's some more of the eligibility requirements. And don't feel like you have to take too many notes. I see some of you are. If you go to WYOBIZ relief.org, all of this information is on there. And I'm going to just kind of hit the highlights. So be sure to look on wyobizrelief.org. Important to all of our funds have been that you're headquartered in Wyoming. And you'll see some more details about that. But the money is really intended to help Wyoming producers and Wyoming business people. And you had to have been impacted by COVID-19 pandemic. So some ways that you could have been affected is by supply chain disruptions, decreased demand, required reclosures, or regulatory requirements. And we all know that the markets nosedived the end of the spring and lots of different things have happened because of COVID. So the way the program is set up is that you must show a loss in gross revenue and or extraordinary related COVID expenses. So those extraordinary COVID related expenses that are eligible are broken down into 3 categories for ag producers. The first one is livestock feed and supplements. So think of it this way. Let's say you run your yearlings over and you were going to market them in April when the market went so bad. You decided to hang on to them. So you started pouring the feed to them. So you held those cattle an extra, let's say 90 days before you marketed them. Those 90 days worth of feed is because of COVID, right? So that is a COVID-related expense. Count it, document it. Custom hire labor costs. We saw this more with the sheep guys. They couldn't get their help over here, and so they had a lot more expense with shearing, getting expedited expenses that way. We've seen some custom labor costs that guys wouldn't normally have. Document it, that's an expense. And then fertilizer, chemical, seed. The example that was given to me was a guy had a bunch of chemical on order, herbicide, and because of the supply chain disruptions in the trucking, they couldn't get it there. So he bought what was in stock, which was different volume size, cost him a lot more money. Document the difference, that's a COVID expense. So if you go on our website, wyobizrelief.org, you will find a worksheet. And this worksheet will help you get to the numbers you need to fill out the application. The fields are the same. They mirror each other, so you can look at that and know exactly what you want to put in there. Again, it starts with lost business revenue. And you guys, we know the program isn't perfect. We know it doesn't fit everybody. The guidelines from the Fed are very strict. They're very tight. It can't be forward-looking. So you have to have experienced a loss. So the way that this is set up is you're going to look at your 2019 gross revenue. So what did you sell in 2019? And you're going to compare that to 2020. And the time periods you're going to compare are from March 13th to whatever date you apply. Okay? So those 2 time periods are really important. If you're not sure what gross revenue really is when you get your sheet from the accountant, call your accountant, because it's not net income, it's not net profit, it's gross revenue. And that's really important when you do your calculation, because gross revenue is more beneficial to you. So you're going to get a number on your difference between 2020 and 2019, and then that number is going to be added to those COVID-related expenses that we talked about. So not normal operating expenses, Don't do like you do for taxes and add up all your operating expenses and think that goes in that box. That's not what goes there. It's only things that happen because of COVID. And you're going to add those together. Then what's going to be subtracted off is any other CARES money you got. Federal Treasury guidance tells us that we can't double count. So CFAP has to come off that number. PPP has to come off that number. Idle advance comes off that number. Any other business relief program money you got comes off that number. Okay? And then whatever number's left at the bottom, that's your grant request amount. So again, then fill out the worksheet, grab your accountant if you need to clarify and get those numbers put together. So where are we at right now? The fund has been open a little over a week. So far, and I did this morning before we left, so I'm sure it's gone up during the day, but we've received 274 ag applications requesting 20.3 million. We have already paid out 6 million, and that equates to 764 employees being supported through CARES Act funds, which is what the feds like to see. So we talked a little bit about the worksheet and the numbers you're going to need. This is just a recap of that. The big thing is to make sure that you document your numbers because they're going to probably be audited. They're taking a sampling. There's desk audits that happen, and you just need to be able to back up your numbers in case there's a question. If you have applied for any of the other business relief programs, you're going to want to log in with that same login information. Don't create a new profile or it'll kick you out, okay? And yeah, if you've already applied for some of the others, you can still be available for this one. But as far as endurance and ag goes, you can only apply for one of those with the same EIN or social number. So some tips per the trade are work with your accountant or your banker if you have questions. Of course, you can always call us and we'll help walk you through. Make sure you have those credentials. It's all online. There's no paper copy. There's no mail it in, fax it in. You got to do it online, and that's because of time. Because of that November 30th deadline, there just was not enough days to make it work otherwise. So get online and get it done. You'll want to put in your worksheet numbers in there. It's mobile friendly, so you can even do it from your iPhone. The important part is for your application to be in, you got to certify and sign. And if you got questions, call us or look at the website. So what happens after you apply? There's a few things that are going to happen. You're going to get an email right away that says, congratulations. I can't remember what it says, but you have applied so that you know that your application went in. And then it's going to go through a review process. And why this is really important is because there's a lot of bad actors out there, and the fraud that comes in from other states and other countries, they know this money is out there. So we have a very rigorous check system that we take people through to make sure that you really are an ag business or you really are a business in Wyoming. And so that's why it takes some time to get the applications done. There is auditing going on, and then sometimes if we have trouble tracking if you guys are really ag or not, because there's not a state database that says, here's all your ag people, right? We're independent people. We don't like to be on lists. So there's no list for us to look at either. So we might send you an email that says, send us your schedule F, please. Or send us some sort of documentation so that we know you really are growing hay in Goshen County. Payments will be sent via EFT or certified check. And of course, Wyoming is really working on being transparent. So your name or business will be listed on wyopen.com. So how will you hear from us? It's really super super important that after you apply, whatever email you use, check it often. Because we have some pretty hard deadlines in the system to make sure that everybody's application moves through to keep things going. I mean, the Ag Fund, I think I said we had 275 applications. All the other funds put together, we're looking at close to 8,000 or 9,000. So it has to get pretty automated. So you guys need to check your email in case we need more documents from you. If you get one that says you're denied, don't panic. Call us and we'll say, you never sent us your Schedule F, get that in. And so then you can get that in. We ask for your cell phone number in case I can't get a hold of you through your email. Check your spam, by the way. Make sure it didn't go in there. I might call you or somebody else might call you. The state auditor's office might call you to make sure we've got the right address on file where you need to send the money. So how are we doing on time? We're good? Okay. I thought I'd go through a few frequently asked questions that we keep getting over and over, and maybe this will answer any questions you have in your mind. The first one is, what kind of losses is this intended to cover? So again, we're going to boil it all down to that gross revenue. Think of your sales. You know, if you're marketing corn, if you're marketing cattle, whatever you're marketing, that is your gross sales. And then we're going to add that to your extraordinary expenses. Again, you guys, it really is that simple. So don't be intimidated by the process. This next question, if we were not able to sell a product like wool, like your cattle, like your corn, if you haven't sold calves yet this year, does that count, even if you still have that commodity in your possession? So we really have to compare apples to apples, 2019 to 2020. So if you haven't sold your wool this year, then you got to take that off your 2019 gross revenue too and see what's left. You got your lambs to sell. If you do corn and hay, if you haven't sold one this year, take it off and see what's left and if you have a loss or not. If you only have one commodity and you haven't sold it, this program probably, unfortunately, doesn't work for you. In 2019, I sold my crops in January, not between March and November like you're asking me to use. Can I still use those sales figures even though they don't fall into the exact dates? So if you remember, we wanted to compare March 13th to date of application on both years. And that's because the Fed tells us that March 13th is the date we get to use for when COVID struck, okay? So that's why we're trying to compare those two dates. If you sold in 2019 ahead of March 13th, that's fine. Use those numbers. Just make sure we're comparing apples to apples. Do not change your dates on 2020. Those dates are hard. Okay, it's March 13th to whatever day you apply. Is there an inventory payment for how many acres I own or lease? So I got this question a lot, and I know it comes from CFAP because there was inventory payments. You got paid on acreage, you got paid on inventory numbers. The Fed did that with CFAP. They don't let us do that with our program. So the answer is no. It strictly is on gross revenue and extraordinary expenses. If I apply for CFAP 2, how do I account for that in my calculation? So in case you don't know, CFAP round 2 is still open. It's open till December 11th. So feel free to apply for that. If you have already applied for that and you put your application in with us and you haven't got your approval letter from CFAP, count 75% of whatever you applied for and put that in the CFAP box. That is a best practice that the Treasury guidance gave us as well. I haven't done my bookkeeping yet. Can I make a best guess? Please don't. Please don't. You can, but if you get audited, there you are. You know, you're exposing yourself to more and more and more questions. And We know that when audits happen and there's a question mark, then it just gets deeper and deeper and deeper. So just grab your gross sales numbers and your extraordinary expense numbers and try to keep the guessing to the minimum, please. So who does this fund cover? It's for farmers and ranchers. It's for the guys that are in production ag and gals. And if you produce, I think the definition was protein, fiber, or crops, right? So I had a guy call me and he said, well, I'm not cow-calf, I'm a backgrounder. And I said, you're in production ag, apply. Same with the feedlot guys. The animal doesn't have to be born on your place to be production ag, right? Just make sure that you are before the value added at the end process. All of these questions are listed on our website. There's also a lot more, and we keep adding to them as we get more and more questions. So please look on there. Again, I encourage you to apply. I mean, even if you get to the end of the equation and it's $1,000, it's $1,000, right? And I know we're all highly independent and we don't need help, but this COVID-19 thing's a little different. So they've made this available. If you need it, please take it. Yes?
Okay, we bought more shares for producing livestock, so we sold more. So we didn't have to make more. We add the equations that it worked.
Yeah. Yeah, unfortunately, like I said earlier, it doesn't fit everybody and it's not perfect. And I hope CFAP fits you better because the legalities of how this money has to be spent made it incredibly difficult to fit everybody. We couldn't just do the way CFAP did. And so I hope CFAP fits you better. Yes.
So what's the most money you have to pay?
Well, the max amount is 250,000. So I don't know if there's any in the queue for that or not. I would suspect probably, but I don't know off the top of my head. Yeah, Ken?
Jill, if this money doesn't get spent, we don't get people to apply for it, what happens?
I think it's going to roll into something else, possibly into the endurance fund. I mean, the goal is to get all the money spent so it doesn't go back to the feds. Whatever doesn't get spent goes back. So the intent is to use what we can, get it in you guys' hands, help it any way it can help you. It doesn't say how it has to be spent. A lot of the programs said how it had to be spent. That's a big bonus on this one. You know, the equation is tight, but it doesn't say, show me how you spent it. So that's one of the pluses on this one. Yeah.
Is it taxed on are we going to be taxed on those dollars?
Yeah. Yep. All the federal CARES money is taxable. Yeah. Any other questions? Well, thank you guys. Thank you for everything you do every day, even pandemic, doesn't matter, right? Everybody does what they do. And so the rest of us appreciate it. And thanks for your time today.
Thank you. A little token from the Wyoming Farm Bureau.
Appreciate it. Thanks. Handouts too.
Oh,
If
yes.
anybody wants a hard copy, got it.